Hook. Picture this: a merchant ship glides into the port of Messina, Sicily. The harbour master waves it in, eager for trade. But when the gangplank drops, he stumbles back in horror. The sailors are dying, covered in black boils, coughing blood. Some are already corpses. The ship has brought something far more valuable than silk or spices. It's brought the end of the world. Within weeks, the city is a graveyard. Within months, all of Europe will follow. The Black Death has arrived. And nothing, not prayer, not medicine, not running, will stop it. Quick preview. Today we're witnessing the greatest catastrophe in human history. We'll watch as a mysterious plague leaps from the steppes of Asia to the streets of Florence, follow terrified families as they flee cities only to carry death with them, and witness a civilization brought to its knees. This is 1347, the year the world died. Context. We're standing at the peak of medieval civilization. Gothic cathedrals pierce the sky. Trade routes connect every corner of the known world. Cities are growing, populations booming. Europe has never been more prosperous, or more crowded. The perfect conditions for a plague. Far to the east, along the Silk Road, something terrible is stirring. Reports filter back of entire cities emptied. Of armies that melt away before a battle is even fought. Of a sickness that kills in days. The merchants dismiss it as rumor. They're wrong. The plague first touches Europe through war. In Kaffa, a Genoese trading colony on the Black Sea, Mongol armies have laid siege. But the Mongols are dying, struck down by a disease that blackens their skin and fills their lungs with blood. In desperation or cruelty, they catapult infected corpses over the walls. Biological warfare, 7 centuries before the term exists. The Genoese flee in their ships, not knowing they're carrying the plague with them. Every port they touch becomes a death sentence. Messina. Genoa. Marseille. The disease spreads faster than any warning. In Italy, the plague hits like a hammer. Florence loses half its population in months. The poet Boccaccio watches his city die around him and writes, "Brother abandoned brother, uncle abandoned nephew, sister left brother, and often wife left husband." Fathers and mothers refuse to visit or nurse their own children. The doctors are helpless. They try bloodletting, herb burning, lancing the buboes. Nothing works. The symptoms are terrifying: first a fever, then the buboes appear, swellings the size of eggs in the groin, armpits, and neck. They turn black and burst. Some victims develop black spots across their skin. Others cough blood, the pneumonic form that kills in hours, not days. Some believe bad air causes the sickness, they carry flowers and spices to ward it off. Others sit between 2 roaring fires, trying to burn the disease away. In Milan, authorities wall up infected houses with everyone inside, the healthy with the dying. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. Flagellants march through cities, whipping themselves bloody, begging God for mercy. Others take the opposite approach: if the world is ending, why not enjoy it? Wild parties erupt in plague-stricken cities, the living celebrating desperately before death finds them too. By spring 1348, the plague is everywhere. It travels the trade routes like a shadow, following merchants and pilgrims, jumping from port to port, town to town. There is no escaping it. Paris buries 800 people a day. The graveyards overflow. They dig mass pits and stack bodies like cordwood. The smell of death hangs over the city like fog. People flee the cities, hoping the countryside will be safe. But they carry the plague with them. Villages that have never seen a stranger suddenly find death knocking at every door. Entire families are wiped out overnight. Houses stand empty, crops rot in fields, livestock wander ownerless. The church cannot cope. Priests die as fast as their flocks, faster, even, because they're called to comfort the dying. In some parishes, there's no one left to give last rites. The dying confess their sins to each other, or to the empty air, hoping God is listening. The Pope himself, Clement VI, retreats to Avignon and sits between 2 enormous fires day and night, hoping the heat will purify the air. He authorizes mass absolutions for entire cities at once. There simply aren't enough priests to hear individual confessions. The plague reaches England in the summer of 1348. It comes ashore at Melcombe Regis and spreads like wildfire. By winter, London is dying. The king closes Parliament. Courts shut down. The machinery of government grinds to a halt. In the countryside, whole villages vanish. Archaeologists will find them centuries later, ghost towns, abandoned overnight, never to be inhabited again. The survivors speak of houses where entire families lay dead in their beds, with no one left to bury them. In Germany, the flagellant movement reaches fever pitch. Thousands march from town to town, stripping to the waist and beating themselves with iron-tipped whips. They believe their blood sacrifice will appease God's wrath. Instead, they spread the plague even faster. And then comes the horror within the horror. Desperate for someone to blame, mobs turn on Jewish communities. They're accused of poisoning wells, of causing the plague through sorcery. Massacres sweep through Germany and France. Entire Jewish communities are burned alive. Pope Clement VI condemns the violence, but his words change nothing. By the time the plague burns itself out, Europe is unrecognizable. At least a third of the population is dead, some estimates say half. 40 to 50 million people, gone in just a few years. It's a death toll that won't be matched until the 20th century. But from the ashes, something unexpected emerges. With so many dead, labor becomes precious. Peasants who survived can demand higher wages, better conditions. The feudal system, which has locked Europe in hierarchy for centuries, begins to crack. Art and culture transform. The obsession with death becomes everywhere visible. The dance of death, or danse macabre, appears in paintings and poems, skeletons leading popes and peasants, kings and beggars alike to the grave. Death, the great equalizer. Even faith itself is shaken. If God allowed this horror, what does that mean? The Church's authority, already strained, begins a slow decline. Some turn to mysticism, seeking direct communion with God. Others fall into despair or rage against a deity who could permit such suffering. Universities empty as students and professors die, but those that survive will begin questioning ancient wisdom. If Galen and the old medical authorities were so wrong about the plague, what else might they be wrong about? The seeds of the Renaissance and religious revolution are planted in plague graves. Rap UP. And so 1347 closes with a world broken and remade. The Black Death is the worst catastrophe in recorded history, a plague that killed more people, more quickly, than any war or famine before or since. But humanity survives. The survivors bury their dead, plant new crops, rebuild their cities. They carry the trauma forever, it echoes through art, religion, and culture for generations. But they endure. The medieval world has ended. Something new is being born. And the survivors will build it from the bones of the old. And that was 1347. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. We'll see you in 1348.